Welcome on in. Belly up, have a seat, grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome on into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the league podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you, who may be watching or listening to today's show. It is Monday, November 24th. This is episode 199, and we're about to have our Week 12's two-point conversation. And it's my great pleasure to welcome back to the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
Freshly minted on top of the power rankings, Team B. How you doing today, Bernie?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing better than the Minnesota Vikings because they look like trash.
They did look like trash. There were a couple teams that look like trash today, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But in this show, we're going to start off with our some player news. We'll also go through the studs and duds for Week 12. We'll also settle into a nice, casual Week 12's two-point conversation where we go through all of the Week 12 action up to this point. And then we'll look at some early waiver wire targets. But before we do any of that, I'd like to make sure that everybody is in the room.
Wingmen assemble!
All right, now that everyone is here, let's get right into it. Let's get into some news and notes. Let's just start with some of the players that were placed on the IR heading into Week 12 so we can close the book on these guys. Starting off with Michael Penix, Atlanta quarterback, was placed on the IR earlier in the week. He is scheduled to have season-ending surgery on his right knee. This will be the third time in 7 years he's had arthroscopic surgery on that right knee. So that's a tough blow for him there. Calvin Ridley was also placed on the IR with a broken leg, so his season is done. In case I wasn't clear, Michael Penix's season is now done as well. And Torrey Horton, who missed the last 3 games with a groin injury, was placed on the IR just ahead of Week 12 here. He's already missed today, of course, Week 12, of course. So now he has 3 more games before he's able to return. And Sam Laporta was placed on the IR a week and a half ago, and all the chatter was he was going to come back soon after that 4-game minimum absence. However, he is now going to have a procedure on his back, and he's going to be out for the rest of the fantasy season. All right, let's talk about these guys placed on the IR. Bernie, Penix, Ridley, and Laporta seem to be done for the year. Horton's been out for 3 games already with 4 games already now, and 3 more to come. Not sure if he's going to come back at all either.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is going to take over for Penix. The struggling Kirk Cousins. He did have a good game today. The Falcons did win today. I won't say he had a good game, but he did lead them to victory. So that's good. Alec Aomeyer and DK are going to be Cam Ward's top receiving targets now. And then as far as Torrey Horton goes, I don't know who's is he going to really?
I guess Cooper Kupp's going to be locked in for the number 2 for a little while, I guess.
Yeah, but Cooper Kupp doesn't look that great. So
exactly.
It's just one of those.
It's the
things.
Jackson Smith and Jigba show. There is no one else.
Exactly, pretty much. And then Sam Laporta, their offense, maybe they lost something with getting receivers open across the field, middle of the field with Sam Laporta being gone, but their offense looks fine. Blocking looks fine. Jahmyr Gibbs looks like a super, super duper star. So I think that they'll be okay.
All right. Moving on to some players who were out today that we weren't quite sure going into the weekend here. Brian Thomas Jr. was inactive once again for the Jaguars with that ankle injury that's kept him out now for 3 consecutive games. Drake London we expected to miss this week, but he was not put on the IR, which means at least the Falcons are anticipating this to be a 4-week or less absence here. He was out for Week 12. There is some optimism that he may return in Week 13. Josh Jacobs, this was the big one going into the weekend. And if you spent money on the backup, it was money well spent as Josh Jacobs went through the pregame warmups, hoping for a chance to play, but ended up being inactive with that knee injury. And the Packers have a short week as they do have a Thanksgiving Day game, which I think had a lot to do with his absence today. And Matthew Golden, also for the Green Bay Packers, was out for the Green Bay Packers. We'll stop with these 4 guys that were out: Brian Thomas, Drake London, and our pair of Packers.
Yeah, with Brian Thomas, really, you just not don't expect anything when he comes back. They're this team's a little bit decimated, but they've got some players that are picking it up. Especially what's his name, Jacoby Myers. He's really integral part of this offense now, especially with Travis Hunter and everybody else kind of being gone. Um, I'm sorry, who's next here? Drake London. Guess who had a decent game today?
Yeah, I saw that.
Darnell Mooney. So all it took was a little Kirk Cousins and everybody else to be hurt. But there's a guy, and I didn't write his name down, but his name slips me. There's a wide receiver that was doing practice team, or I don't know what they call it, work with Kirk Cousins, and he looked like he had a pretty good connection with Kirk Cousins. So I'll get his name for the next show, and make sure I bring that up there. So, and then would you get to Josh Jacobs and
I
Matthew
did. Yeah, I
Golden?
mentioned the two Packers here. Jacobs and Golden were both out today.
Yeah, Emmanuel Wilson, he handled his day very, very well. I don't know if that was just the competition, because Minnesota looked really, really bad. And then Matthew, oh, I just lost my place. Matthew Golden. You say something about Matthew Golden.
He's
Romeo Dobbs had a decent day. So that's good.
Yeah, they all those receivers have been questionable for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it seems like one always sits out, but it's never the one you think. Kind of going
Yeah.
into the week here, I thought Golden was going to play as he played last week on the same injury. However, I guess he's just kind of like that close to being in and out that one bad day or waking up a little stiff might keep you out of a game here. And then yeah, so that's it for those guys. Moving on to some quarterbacks we were thinking about here. We have Aaron Rodgers was pushed into play today with a broken left wrist. But in fact, he was inactive, making way for Mason Rudolph. It's his time of year, guys. Once Thanksgiving's done, it's Rudolph time, and he's getting ready to help the Steelers here. He actually didn't play that poorly, just did what a backup does. Managed a game where they needed more than that this today. Joe Burrow also was not activated ahead of the Week 12 games. Joe Flacco got in another start for Cincinnati. All the chatter was in the last week and a half that he was going to be ready for the Week 13 Thanksgiving night game for Joe Burrow. However, they're saying that is not set in stone. And if he's not activated for that game, he's done for the year. We'll talk about that a little more in the 2-point conversation. Jamar Chase was absent today as he was suspended one game for unsportsmanlike acts in Week 11. And then we'll stop right there real quick. We have so Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase are AFC North guys were missing today's games.
Yeah, you said it. Rudolph is a game manager here. He's not really a fantasy quarterback you can trust. He might put up some fantasy numbers every now and then, but you can't really trust it. Rogers expected to be back week 13, so maybe something will happen there. Joe Flacco, Jamar Chase. They really needed this game. Was a little bit crazy. I think Iwasa, is that his name?
Isavis.
Yusufis. He went out for a little bit this game. Higgins got knocked out towards the end of the game. So they're really stretching there for offensive firepower at this point. Flacco looked okay for who we know Flacco to be, but he did get banged up a little bit in this game as
Yeah, his
well.
finger
So
was pointing the wrong direction today
yeah.
for half this game. All
So, but
right.
he's a tough guy, man.
Yeah. All right, our next guy's here, Jackson Dart. I actually think he cleared the concussion protocol, but they're not playing for anything. Although he's a young player who does need reps, so it's not like sit him out for for that reason. There, like Joe Burrow, for example. But nonetheless, they didn't want to take a chance with the young man. Let Jameis Winston make his second consecutive start for the G-men, and what a wild day for this. We'll get into that one between the Giants and the Detroit Lions. So that was kind of exactly what we thought Winston would do. We hoped him to start last week, but he had that got that opportunity this time. And Dylan Gabriel missed week 12 with a concussion. Shador Sanders made his first NFL start. I don't want to say it's hard to say played well. He had moments, both good and bad, but honestly, compared to Geno Smith, his moments looked really good, as the worst moments were way more on the other side of the ball. And then let's see. We'll stop right there real quick with these rookie quarterbacks who are out today, because we'll finish with the one last group on the other side here. So Jackson Dart was out, making way for your man, Jameis Winston. Dylan Gabriel was out. And honestly, Shador Sanders presented himself pretty well considering all the talk this year.
Yeah, famous Seamus is going to do famous Seamus things. They didn't end up winning that game, but they put up a really good fight, and he didn't throw any interceptions that ended their game badly. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't his fault that they lost that game. Let's just say that. Shador Sanders, yeah, he looked like you said, he didn't look great. He didn't look horrible. I heard that he was during the game. He was saying that he liked prepping as the starter. He says he feels more comfortable knowing that he's going to play, and all of the things just kind of groove for him a little different. Did you see his touchdown? We can get into that later, but
I didn't. By that time, I stopped watching the game because they were killing him. So all the touches I saw were on the ground and our
yeah.
defensive setups. I didn't see who he threw it to.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the thing. I got an opinion on that too. So
Okay, yeah, I didn't see it at all, to be honest with you. So I'm interested. All right, moving along here with our last group of players here. Bucky Irving once again was inactive for week 12 with a shoulder/toe injury, missing his seventh consecutive game. Chris Godwin, however, did get back on the field, was active. All reports are that he's going to be on a snap count on Sunday night, but he did get back in after missing the last 5 games. DK Metcalf left Sunday's game very briefly with an ankle injury, but he was able to return. Alvin Kamara, on the other hand, was not able to return as he left early in the second half with a knee injury. And Bernie mentioned it a little bit earlier. T. Higgins was forced out of week 12 with a concussion. And keep in mind here, the Bengals have a short week. We have mentioned it on the other side in terms of getting ready for Joe Burrow, but this is going to make it really hard for T. Higgins to get back onto the field in time for that Thanksgiving night game. All right, do you want to add anything to our Buccaneers? One's still out, one finally got back. Your man DK was in and out of the game today. Kamara, that might be a tough blow just to a true pro. And T. Higgins, a short turnaround. I'm thinking he's going to be out this week.
yeah, T. Higgins, that looked like a pretty big hit. Over in New Orleans, what's his name? Taysom Hill, maybe a super, super deep streaming option for your flex position coming up. Metcalf, he was on pace to have a really, really good game. You called it out last time. It's because Mason Rudolph, he needed his big time players, and he's like, "This is what I do. I get the ball to the playmakers, and they do it." As opposed to Aaron Rodgers, which tries to make things happen probably more than he needs to. And then what was the first guy?
The Tampa Bay
Chris Godwin.
Buccaneers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know anything about this game going on now. So Chris Godwin, Sean Tucker, Rashad White, depending on the game script there. And yeah, I'm gonna go from there.
I'll tell you right now, since we're talking about Bucky Irving, if you like me and are rooting for me to get a win, I need Sean Tucker to score a touchdown in the second half. I'm down by about 7.5 points with Sean Tucker. Can I get some of those 33 points from last week on my bench into this week's starting lineup? Can you do that? Can you just negotiate a little bit of that? I wish that would be the case.
Yeah, no more deals with the devil. That was Halloween. We got Thanksgiving coming up, buddy.
Fair enough. All right, guys, it is now time to take a look at this week's studs and duds.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Wingman Fantasy Football Studs and Duds.
All right, Bernie, why don't you start us off with our studs for week number 12?
All right. In a pretty exciting game for Dallas, Dak Prescott, 29.06 fantasy points, 354 passing yards, 9 rushing yards. He had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown where he went full Superman
Yeah, that was
over
a
the
great
goal line.
flip.
And then my man, start of the week, Trevor Lawrence, 25.14 points. It wasn't pretty, but he got the points. 67 receiving yards, 6 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. That's not a right stat line. Derrick Henry, 21.8 fantasy points, 88 total yards, 2 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And Hunter Henry, 2 Henrys, 21. Oh, Henry, that's a good candy, right? If you're like 80 years old. 21 points for Hunter Henry, 115 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown. Is that Trevor Lawrence stat line correct, Michael?
No, it is not. No, it is not.
Okay.
Not even close. I'm not sure what he has here. Honestly, he had
That's okay.
I don't know what he has. I
Yep.
apologize.
He had 25.14 fantasy points, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Exactly. I apologize for that one. Yeah, who would have thought that Hunter Henry would have a great day against Cincinnati today, huh?
Yeah. I don't
And he
know.
actually had a touchdown.
Guess who I'm playing next week?
And he had a touchdown called back on what I thought was a little bit of a. It's hard to say. It's one of those crossing pattern screen they called offensive pass interference. I don't know how
Yeah.
far along you're supposed to go. Mac Hollins went all the way from the left side. When he hit somebody, it was all the way on the right side, and both guys were open on the left. Like he didn't block the defensive player
It wasn't a
who
pick
got
play.
open. So I don't know, like, and he didn't like stop and run into him. He just ran across. They ran into each other. I'm like, well, whose fault is it if they run into each other at some point? If it's 30 yards downfield, it's not like it was right away, those quick crosses, whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving along here, we had AJ Brown. I wish he had more, although it was a good game for him, especially in the first quarter. 21 points, even at 110 receiving yards on 8 receptions, and he got in the end zone once. And DJ Moore, another start of the week, makes the stud list at 20.9 points at 165. No, that's not right. He had 2 touchdowns. All this is wrong. All right, I apologize, guys. We had some wrong notes here. Bernie, what did Trevor Lawrence actually end up with today before we move along? You don't know that I put it in there. He has 256 passing yards. I updated the doc thing and you saw what I updated, but you don't see that. He had 256 passing yards, 29 rushing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns did Trevor Lawrence. All right, now DJ Moore, another start of the week, makes the stud list. We'll get there, guys. Give us a break.
Yeah.
20.9 points. He had 64 receiving yards on 5 catches, but he got in the end zone twice. Did DJ Moore. Ashton Genty. Honestly, I stopped watching this game, like I said, and he ended up with a decent day at 20.8 points on 108 total yards, getting it done mostly in the passing game, getting 8 receptions, and he got in the end zone once. And Kareem Hunt was a steady thumper all day long, especially in the second half. 20.5 points, 130 total yards with 3 receptions, and he got in the end zone once.
All right. Next up on the list here is Jimbo James Cook, 20.4 fantasy points for Jimbo, 125 total yards, 3 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Rashi Rice, has he been on this list recently? I don't know. 20.1 fantasy points for Rashi, 141 receiving yards, and 8 receptions. Travis Etienne, 19.1 fantasy points, 116 total yards, 3 receptions, and 1 Wilson. Is the guy's name Motormouth Jones's name from
I don't know.
from Police Academy? 16.8
Michael Winslow.
fantasy points. Winslow. 16.8 fantasy points for Michael Wilson, 118 receiving yards and 10 receptions.
And Keenshawn Judkins got in there once again at 16.7 points with a modest day on the ground at 47 rushing yards, but he got in the end zone twice. And the Green Bay defense, we talked about it as a dumpster fire game for the offensive for the Minnesota Vikings. Some of that was contributed to the offense. Some was it to the defense of Green Bay at 16.25 points. Oh, they filled it up today. 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 1 fourth down stop, and they held the Minnesota offense to 145 total yards and 6 points allowed. And we had Zane Gonzalez at 16.1 point. Is this the 3rd, 4th, or 5th kicker for Atlanta? But he had 3 field goals, 1 extra point, and 2 field goals that were over 50 yards in length. And Parker Washington, he's back, guys, 15.6 points with 71 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and he got in the end zone 1 time.
All right. Next up, we have John Mechie, 15.5 fantasy points for Mechie, 65 receiving yards, 6 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Kenneth Gainwell,
Again.
not the Kenneth I want to be on this list, but the other Kenneth, 15.2 fantasy points, 122 total yards, 6 receptions. And Dylan Sampson, 15.2 points, 82 total yards, 2 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And Khalil Shakir, Thursday night, this was the high score for me. I didn't have a running back going against me Thursday night, but I did have Khalil Shakir with 15 fantasy points, 110 total yards, and 8 receptions.
So we have 2 Browns running backs on the stud list. That is unheard of. All right, moving along here with Harrison Butker at 15 points even on 5 field goals. Just a nice round way to get this done. And Jason Michael Myers, came in at 14.3 points on 3 field goals and 3 extra points. Evan McPherson on somebody's bench at 13.7 points, 2 field goals, 2 point afters, 2 field goals that were more than 50 yards, including a 63-yarder today. Oh, this one's for you, Bernie. And Jake Shakin' Bates.
Shake it back!
At 13.6 points, had 2 field goals, 4 extra points, and one of his kicks was longer than 50 yards.
Oh, I got a better one than that, buddy. I got one that you can have a drop for. Here we go. Jake Bates Motel killing the score with 13.6
Oh, wow.
fantasy
You
points.
can have that one. You can keep that one.
All right, next up we have another kicker here. The new record holder. Isn't this guy the record holder now? Cam Little, 13.4 fantasy points, 2 field goals, 3-point afters, and 2 50-plus yard field goals. Arizona defense showed up. A good effort, but not good enough. 13.25 fantasy points for Arizona defense, 3 sacks, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 1 defensive touchdown, and 1 fourth down stop. And last but not least, Brandon McManus, 12.2 fantasy points, 3 field goals, 2-point afters, and 1 50-plus yard field goal. It would have been more than one, Brandis, if you would have just stayed in Denver where they kick the ball forever.
Yep. Like we always say, for every yin, there's a yang. Every stud, there's a dud. Now it's time to get into our duds for week 12. Joe Flacco, we said, in a valiant effort, but got off to a slow start, finished with 11.62 points. Mason Rudolph only had 11.54 points. Tyler Shuck had 11.92 points. And Lamar Jackson for the second straight week is under 8 points, guys, at 7.22 points.
Yeah, I have a feeling some of his receivers might be on this list too. Jordan Love's next up here, 7.06 points for Jordan Love in a win. T. Higgins, this is a bummer for T. Higgins, 5.6 fantasy points. Get better, T. Higgins. Demario Douglas, 5.6 fantasy points. Tyler Algier, 5.4 fantasy points, and they still won the game.
Yeah. Again, a lot of times we put these players up here because we talk about them so much. We just want to finish the thought where they ended up with all of our potential flex options and stuff like that. David Montgomery, a start of the week. I always pick the running back in the highest scoring running back game of the week, and it's the wrong running back, no matter which one I pick. This time it was David Montgomery. I thought he'd get a little piece, but Jahmyr Gibbs would not share at all at 5.2 points. Devin Singletary off his 2 touchdown game a week prior can only get 4.7 points this week. Tajay Spears at 4.5 and J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy. Oh, we got to talk about this boy right here at 4.48 points.
Bummer, JJ. All right, next we got another JJ up on this list. Jerry Judy, 4.4 fantasy points. No good, Jerry. Trey Tucker, a TT up on this list. 4.3 fantasy points for Trey Tucker. Jordan Mason, 4.2 fantasy points. And Kyle Stinky Pitts. Thank you for the 3.5 fantasy points because I was going up against you this week.
Unfortunately, another start of the week makes our dud list. Bernie DeAndre Swift at 3.4 points. Cooper Kupp at 3.4 points. Romeo Duds this week at 3.3. And Alec Pierce, who's been pretty reliable all year, came in at 3.1 points in a defensive battle.
Yeah, I feel for you on the running back situation. Manungai did beat his projected points in this game. So bummer, DeAndre. All right, next up, Stephon Diggs, 3.3 fantasy points for Stephon. Dallas Goedert, 3 fantasy points. Darius Slayton, 2.8 fantasy points. Just because Wandale got all this stuff. And Alvin Kamara, 2.5 fantasy points. Bummer, buddy.
And we had Kayshon Booty at 2.5 points. Nick Chubb at 2.1. Bayshal Tootin at 1.7. Oh, Mark Andrews at 1.6. But don't worry, there are better days ahead for our tight ends out of Baltimore.
That's right. Ramondre Stevenson, 1.5 fantasy points. Looks like there's a new running back in town, Ramondre, but he didn't have a good game either. Dalton Schultz, 1.3 fantasy points. Cedric Tillman, 1 fantasy point. And the Minnesota defense, just as bad as their offense, 1 fantasy point.
We have the New York Jets defense at 1 point. Rashid Shaheed just can't get in a rhythm with his new team at 0.5 points. And the KC defense had almost 5 full periods today, quarters, and they had 0 points. And also Jordan Addison had the goose. All right, guys, now it's time to get into our Mecca studs for week number 12.
Mega Studs.
All right, starting off, I believe this is the highest scoring player of the year. We've had a few guys get pretty close to this, but I don't think we've ever had anyone get this high. At Jahmyr Gibbs at 49.9 points, 264 total yards with 11 receptions, and he got in the end zone 3 times. And Jameis Winston did it all. He had his DJ Moore, Caleb Williams stat line from a couple weeks back at 33.74 points, 366 passing yards, 13 rushing yards, 2 passing TDs, 1 reception, and 1 receiving TD. And I always say Puka Nacua, but honestly, Jackson Smith and Jigba has been sizzling hot on fire in the Pacific Northwest at 33.1 points on 171 total yards with 8 catches and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts, similar to Trevor Lawrence, one of the dirtiest studs here at 30.86 points. He had 289 passing yards, 33 rushing yards, 1 passing TD, and he rushed into the end zone twice. And Wan'Dale Robinson, part of that Jameis Winston stack today at 26.1 points on 156 receiving yards on 9 catches, and he got in the end zone on a beautiful over-the-shoulder catch early in the game today.
Oh, yeah. And look at this guy coming in to fill some big shoes. Emmanuel Wilson, 25.5 fantasy points. He had 125 total yards, 2 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And my man, Amon-Ra St. Brown, thank you, sir. 25.4 fantasy points, 149 receiving yards, 9 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And it started slow. And George Pickens, man, this guy he has changed my mind. I still don't like the way he looks on the sideline, though, with his attitude. 25.1 for George, 146 receiving yards, 9 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And a kicker, Mr. Andy Borealis, 17.7 fantasy points, 4 field goals, 2 point afters, and 1 50-plus yard field goal.
He's like the Northern Lights in Norway, the Aurora Borealis.
Okay, no, Borealis. There you go.
So, all right, guys, with all those studs and duds, we had a lot of big scores this week, actually. And this is one of the most balanced we've had in terms of studs to duds. So that was kind of nice to see. Sometimes the dud list is way too long. All right, now let's get into our 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, guys, starting out this week, the theme for this weekend's action is unnecessary overtime games and more stupid coaching decisions when it comes down to going for it on 4th down. And it cost some of these coaches their victories today, and some got lucky regardless of their dumb mistakes. All right, Bernie, where are we starting with our 2-point conversation?
You want to go way back to Thursday night real fast?
We'll do a quick. I talked about a little bit as I recorded late, but we can do a quick recap.
All right. The Texans pulled off a 23-19 upset behind their top-ranked defense, which sacked the reigning MVP, Mr. Josh Allen, I think, career high 8 times. I said it correctly, 8 times.
Yeah.
It wasn't 6 or 7. It was 8. Safety Kalen Bullock forced 3 turnovers, sealing the win in a late interception. Backup Davis Mills threw 2 first-half touchdown passes, moving Houston above 500 for the first time this season.
The only thing I would say here is, I guess Davis Mills was really, what's the word I want? But super targeting Nico Collins. I guess he's getting more comfortable. They were almost using him as a decoy, or realizing he was getting double covered, and he was thrown to the guy filling in the space on those short yardage slants that Collins was doing. He was thrown into the other receivers, so kind of some no-name receivers caught the touchdowns this last week. I mean, good on him for making the right play here. And really, except for an early busted coverage, a long touchdown run by James Cook, this was all about the Houston defense. They just hammered the Buffalo Bills. We mentioned the 8 sacks, and James Cook had a good stat day, but literally 45 yards and a touchdown came on one play. Other than that, he was pretty much stuffed the rest of the game. Houston's on a roll now, over 500 for the first time this year, and they're looking like they're gonna have a chance to get into the playoffs here at a very slow start. They're looking really good. Now the question is, are they gonna not rush back? They've already not rushed back. Are they gonna bring back CJ Stroud or just ride the Davis Mills train until the wheels fall off? I ask you, Bernie, what would you do if you had that decision to make for Houston?
No, I'd bring back CJ Stroud. Keep Davis Mills happy and healthy. on the sideline, ready to come in just in case. I think that's the best use of the backup. You run the backup too long in the season, he starts to get, like he can do it all. But yeah. Hey, Jaden Higgins, that's the wide receiver. He had 1 touchdown, but he had 9 targets. And Christian Kirk had the other touchdown. Is Jaden Higgins related to T. Higgins? Do you know?
I don't know. I'd say I doubt it, but I don't know.
There you go. Okay, just curious. All right, moving on. Let's get into Sunday's matchups. All right, for the early games, our first game we have the Bears and I'm sorry, the Steelers at the Bears. The Bears overcame a strip stack touchdown as Caleb Williams threw 3 touchdown passes in a 31-28 victory over backup Mason Rudolph and the Steelers. Chicago forced 2 turnovers that produced 14 points, including a pick on the game's opening drive.
Yeah, this one I just want to, like we said, we were not worrying about. There was consideration whether or not Aaron Rodgers would play with that broken non-throwing wrist here. I think obviously the smart decision was not putting someone with a broken arm out there. So that Mason Rudolph came in, just kind of kept the offense moving to start with. They were actually looked decent to go with there. I think a lot of this game came down to they're praising the comeback of the Bears, and they did that. But literally the Steelers stopped doing anything. They made so many. I've never seen Mike Tomlin make so many poor situational decisions. I've never seen it. They were going for a 4th down for no reason when they were up the whole game by it was dwindling. It went from whatever it was 9 points down to 3 points, but they were up the whole time. Just kick the field goals, guys. They went for a weird wide receiver sneak. They brought in Calvin Austin. He had 3 snaps today under center. They brought him in and he forgot to move on the snap. The defensive line just swallowed him up and he never moved. I'm like, what are they doing? Except later on that same formation, he handed it off to Kenneth Gainwell on an end around sweep. So I'm like, did you fail on 4th down in a critical moment just to set up a long run later? It seems like you could have gotten points both times, not just once. But again, just going for it on 4th down in these close games when the other team, they haven't shown you enough to be totally afraid of them. It's not like Mahomes back in the day where if we give him a minute and a half and we're up by 6, we're going to lose. Get up by 6. Get up by 3. Take the lead. This is not going to be the first time I'm going to mention this, guys. I should do my mic rants on these 2-point conversations. That's when it's fresh. But honestly, Pittsburgh played fine. They just kind of stopped being smart and then eventually just gave enough time for Chicago to make the plays they needed to do. And Caleb Williams made a couple good throws today, but he wasn't even spectacular. He just ran the ball a little bit, made some big throws. But again, Pittsburgh just gave him time to get to get comfortable in this game.
Yeah, Caleb Williams, no interceptions. He only had 1 sack and lost 10 yards. He's good. He didn't have a crazy QBR, like you said, but he played a mistake-free game, which is all they need. And look, the Bears won. I know the Bears have been winning, but they won. And you know who had a good game? DJ Moore. I think it's a correlation here, right? It's a causation without correlation or correlation without cause. I don't know. One of those things.
I'll just say though, I thought, especially with that sack for a touchdown in the end zone, Pittsburgh was imposing their will, and by them taking their foot off the gas, maybe they were afraid. I don't know, because Williams started out he was 2 for 9 or something ridiculous. He finished the day 16 for 31 or around there. He didn't, like you said, for him not having the turnovers was good, although he did have the fumble for a touchdown, but not the non-interceptions was good. But like I was saying, they gave him time to get comfortable. He was not comfortable in that first half when he was going, like I said, whatever it was, 2 for 9, 3 for 10, something like that. If they could have kept the pressure on, excuse me, I think he would have never gotten comfortable, but they gave him time because they were not putting any pressure on them from the offensive side as they kept going for on 4th down, not putting the extra 3 points to just keep the pressure on Caleb Williams, let him settle in and eventually finish off with a stronger day than he started with.
Yeah. And then Pittsburgh, they're Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph did Mason Rudolph things. But you were absolutely right. The coaching lost this game, and maybe the coaching and the motivation won the game on the other side. To start off slow and not have Caleb get into his head. Let's give some credit to Big Ben Johnson.
Was this one of those games? There was 3. I don't know. It seemed like there were 3 games like this where they had I think it was this game. So the final score was a 3-point differential, right? Chicago won by 3.
Yep, 28-31.
I believe on one of the last drives, depending on what because I think Chicago kneeled it out, but Pittsburgh was moving the ball. They got to about the 40-yard line, a very long, I don't know exactly where they were, but about there, 40, 44-yard line, a very long kick to tie the game. But it's 4th and 6. You've got your backup quarterback. You literally haven't completed a pass for the last 12 minutes, and they go for it on 4th and 6 when you have a kicker who's literally breaking records this year. I know it's not as likely to make, it's not a guarantee to make the kick, but I would say it's at least a 50-50, and I would say it's less than 50-50. Your backup quarterback's going to come through with a clutch 4th and 6 completion with a minute to go. Kick the field goal and live with your better players. Boswell, whether you think it or not, is one of their top 5 players. Mason Rudolph is not. Put the ball in the hands of your better players in these critical situations. This theme will be hit over and over again today.
It sounds like you got Boswell on your fantasy football
That's
roster
true
or
too.
something.
That's true too. But
okay, next game we got up here. All right, the Patriots. Next up, we have New England Patriots at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Patriots rallied from a 10-0 deficit to extend their winning streak to 9 games against a Bengals team without suspended Jamar Chase. Drake May bounced back from an early pick 6 in the 26-20 victory. New Orleans improved to 10-2 with the backup Joe Flacco starting for Cincinnati.
Yeah, this one, I guess you lucky you play one of your worst games against a tough, a non-quality opponent here. Drake May looked awful to start the game. I missed the first drive, and he was just really lollipopping the throws like to nobody. I was like, did he get concussed? He doesn't look like he knows where he is and what he's trying to throw to. I was getting a little nervous there. He finally settled in by the end because the Cincinnati Bengals didn't put too much pressure on them. But the Bengals, I felt like were they up early in this game, right? Am I not mistaken? It was a 10-zip Bengals.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, that pick 6 you mentioned, that was one of those like lollipop throws where he literally just looked spaced out and just threw it into space with not a receiver in the area. There's a couple things that caught my attention on this one here. The first thing was Drake May's a tough start. The next part was with the return of Ramondre Stevenson to the starting lineup. We weren't sure how this was going to break down. We saw Travion Henderson with 2 breakout games out of the 3 games missed with Ramondre Stevenson, but nope, they went back to splitting the carries. Henderson got more of the work. I want to say more of the work, but they put in Ramondre Stevenson several times in short yardage to go, and he failed almost on all of them. They also brought in Terrell Jennings on a 1st and goal. He had the first carry, so that was pretty bad in that sense here. And the non-surprise of the week was a tight end against Cincinnati had an awesome game. Hunter Henry was a monster today and actually had a second touchdown called back due to an offensive penalty that I thought was debatable. And the Cincinnati defensive line really stopped the run game here. They kept Cincinnati in it because it wasn't the offense. It was Cincinnati's defensive line that was stuffing the short yardage runs over and over again. I was kind of impressed with Cincinnati's defensive line or overly disappointed with the run game for the New England Patriots, but they got the win. Like you said, they're on the top of the AFC right now. And I guess you just play whoever's in front of you, and they did that today, and they got another win.
Yeah, just be really concerned here for T. Higgins. Hopefully he's okay, because without any sort of offensive firepower, Cincinnati is going to struggle for sure.
Yeah,
right,
I don't expect T. Higgins to play. I don't expect T.
York...
Higgins to play this following week here.
Exactly. All right, next up, we have the New York Giants at the Detroit Lions. The Lions rallied from a 10-point fourth quarter deficit as Jahmyr Gibbs ran for a 69-yard touchdown on the first play of overtime in the 34-27 victory. Jameis Winston, though, he threw for 357 yards, caught a 33-yard touchdown on a trick play, but the Giants still fell to 2-10 after blowing another late lead.
That's right. They've blown. What was their win percentage on this one? I'm not expecting you to know the answer, but didn't they blow 2 or 3 games where they had a 95% win rate at the time when they had their leads in previous blown leads, something like that?
Yeah, and that's how you coach loses your job.
Yep, exactly. So this one was just the Giants know who they are. They just came in you know what? We're just going to have fun. This is playground football. I don't know if that was the Giants coach or Jameis Winston. We never know if Jameis Winston actually runs the plays that are called, but there's flea flickers all over the place. I think one of their long, I don't know if it was a touchdown or just a long play was on a flea flicker. And it was an ugly flea flicker where the running back was in a pile, had to throw it around guys, and they just chucked it blindly, but it was caught. You mentioned it that Winston had a receiving touchdown. I believe it was a 33-yard receiving touchdown but he caught it at about between 12 to 15 yards and rumbled and you would say stumbled maybe through the he had a one-on-one defender there and they were just dancing, and then he stiffed armed him, threw him to the side, and then ran over the last guy as he looked so goofy. But again, if you were to describe this play without seeing it, like, wow, that was like a Derrick Henry. He ran this guy, stiffed armed him, jumped over the last guy. No, he just kind of tripped his way through all those moves, but nonetheless, an impressive play. He didn't go down. He ran for about 18 yards after a catch to get that touchdown. That was kind of fun. And like you mentioned it, Jahmyr Gibbs had a monster day today, especially in that fourth quarter, a clinching touchdown run there. And Detroit's kind of lucky they won this game here. They were playing with their food a little bit, or they didn't realize that the food was going to fight back here, and they had to make a long kick at the end, near the end of regulation, to send this to overtime to even have a chance. I don't know if you want to call a blown win or not for the Giants, because they're really not playing for anything. So this game ended up how it should have, but it was a little dicey there for the Lions going into overtime.
Yeah, it was for sure. Wandale Robinson was the standout player here.
Yes.
Theo Johnson, he had a pretty decent stat line. He just missed the touchdown there. And then Tyrone Tracy, same thing. Had a decent stat line, but just missed out on a touchdown. The other side of the ball, though, I'm not concerned. Their offense didn't look deficient, but James Williams, he didn't have any catches. Isaiah Tesla did not have any receptions without Sam Laporta there. So this is a 34-point offense that ran all the way through Jahmyr Gibbs. Amon-Ra had a really good game, but didn't start off that way. So I just be concerned a little bit with Detroit. I think it starts with Jared Goff. He doesn't look comfortable right now. And that's 2 games in a row, I think, that he just doesn't look comfortable. All right. Next up,
what's our next game?
We have the Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers. The Packers dominated the Vikings 23-6 as Emmanuel Wilson rushed for a career high 107 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first career start, filling in for injured Josh Jacobs. A muffed punt in the third quarter shifted momentum, and Minnesota managed just 4 net yards in the second half.
Yeah, this was a defensive shellacking in terms of Green Bay against the Minnesota Vikings. Green Bay had the highest scoring defense this week as of to this point anyway. McCarthy, I don't know if he can't do it or not. We mentioned last time if there's some sort of like prize picks, pick the over under in the combined sacks, fumbles, interceptions, go for 6.5. And again, he hit that again with 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, I think a fumble as well. This guy is just mistakes after mistakes. They're not moving the ball. They've got tons of offensive weapons. I don't want to put too much blame on the young player here, but they really haven't been playing quite well here. And he's really been a detriment to the offense. And Emmanuel Wilson had some short fields with some of these turnovers and 3-and-outs and stuff. So he got some of his touchdowns on really just fortunate setups in terms of field position. But with getting those short touchdowns, Green Bay got out to a nice, easy lead here. And they really featured the young man. I think he had 28 carries I saw, which means I don't think they anticipate using him next week. I think Josh Jacobs is back, being that they gave him so many carries today. But Wilson came through. If you spent up on a streaming waiver wire pickup this week, he came through for you. And then do you have anything else to add to this game before I ask the main question that I think is on everyone's minds about the Minnesota Vikings?
No, go for it.
Actually, before the question, sorry, I just realized that the reason for because of the way this game was going, there was no need for any passing games. Jordan Love, we mentioned, was a dud. The receivers didn't have to have big days today. The tight ends, none of the passing game mattered because they just had short fields and just dominated with the running game due to circumstance here. All right, here's the question. How much do you think the Minnesota Vikings regret letting either one of these two, if not both, Sam Darnold, and they had Daniel Jones? People forget they had Daniel Jones in their room last year. He became the backup quarterback with a late season signing. How much would they like to have one of those guys on their team instead of going with the second-year rookie McCarthy right now?
Yeah, you know what? Daniel Jones, they might be okay without him, because their running game is horrible. Sam Darnold, on the other hand, though, Sam Darnold doesn't need the Minnesota Vikings because he has JSN to throw the ball to. The Minnesota Vikings doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. So they're missing Sam Darnold. Definitely missing Sam Darnold.
I don't disagree at all. The proof is in the pudding here, as they say. All right, what's our next game?
All right. Speaking of Sam Darnold, it's the Seattle Seahawks at the Tennessee Titans. Seattle won 30-24 behind Sam Darnold's 2 touchdown passes to JSN, who set Seattle's single season receiving record with 1,313 yards through 11 games. Seattle built a 23-3 lead before allowing the 1-9 Titans to rally late in this game. And one quick side note here for JSN, he is on pace to have an NFL receiving yard record, like all-time record.
Wow. Yeah, he's been awesome. He's been almost it's almost quiet considering how good he's doing because of where they're playing and how they just kind of ho-hum win 2 out of every 3 games. You know, they're not undefeated. They're pretty darn good with an 8-3 or something like that now, give or take. So I mean, that's pretty close to being dominating, but they just sprinkle in 1 loss every 3 or 4 games. You kind of forget about them as being how good they really are. They're not even relying on their run game as a main feature here, and they're not even spreading the ball around. It's just JSN is the man. He just knows where his bread is going to be buttered here. We had Torrey Horton with a decent breakout game a couple weeks back, but Cooper Kupp's not doing anything. AJ Barner's getting sprinkled in a little bit in the tight end position there, but like you said, Sam Darnold knows where to go to help his team survive here and thrive, and that's Jackson Smith-Njigba, that's impressive. He went from a guy I didn't trust after his halfway through his second year even. I thought he was a bust, and he is showing that he is, after coming on late last year, he is going to be a perennial, at least for now, he's going to be perennial one of the top young receivers being drafted in terms of fantasy. Most games for Tennessee, they hang in close and then lose by the end. This was the opposite. They actually came back a little bit. Cam Ward had a decent fantasy day with over 23 points. And we mentioned with Alec Ironmaner being out in that Sunday morning quickie and Calvin Ridley being out, Jameer Dike would be the main focus on a lackluster offense. He had 2 touchdowns today, 1 in the receiving game and 1 on a punt return, or I don't think it was a kick return or a punt return. You might be able to correct me there. But Dike got a lot of work today. A lot of fight in the Tennessee Titans. They don't get blown out, but they always lose by that 8 points, give or take, by the end of the game.
Yeah, he had a punt return for a touchdown, and he did good. DK had 7 targets and he had 5 receptions, but Gunnar Helm, this Gunnar Helm guy also had 7 targets and he had 6 receptions for 51 yards. So DK just had the touchdowns to help him out. But as far as fantasy goes, just the 1 touchdown. It wasn't too far off of this Gunnar Helm. So
Okay.
if we can't have anybody, the Titans have a good receiving core. They don't have a bad receiving core. Chig Okonkwo is on the Titans. We just don't hear about him because Cam can't get the ball out to him. I think it's an offensive line issue. It might be a running game issue, but Tony Pollard didn't have a great game either.
All right. What's our next game?
All right, next game we have up here is the Indianapolis Colts at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs rallied from an 11-point fourth quarter deficit as Patrick Mahomes threw a season-high 352 yards, and Harrison Butker kicked a 27-yard overtime field goal for 23-20 victory. Kansas City forced 4 consecutive 3-and-outs to close this game.
Wow. Yeah, we went into this one thinking it was going to be a defensive battle to some degree here. Both these teams are high profile in terms of their pedigree and or record for this year in terms of Indianapolis. But these defenses have been playing, I would say Indianapolis has been playing complementary defense while Kansas City has been playing dominating defense. And that came true today. Indianapolis got out to a great start. Looks like they're going to run away with this one on the road. But like you said, they started to slow down and get sputtered late in the game here with those consecutive 3-and-outs. It was one of the first times ever they got stopped at a goal-to-go situation, not scoring. I believe they got stopped on a 4th down. I'm not sure which player didn't get in there. I saw it, but I don't remember which one it was. With that happening there, Rashee Rice woke up in the 4th quarter, getting huge plays here to flip the field around the defense of the Colts could have helped their offense. I mean, their offense got in the lead, but their defense kept it that way for a while. But with 1 or 2 more stops, the defense could have won this game for the Indianapolis Colts. but instead, Rashi Rice and the Kansas City offense made some huge plays to flip the field, get some field goals to tie it up, and then take the lead there in overtime. I think, like you mentioned, with the Indianapolis offense having those 3 and outs, that the Indianapolis defense kind of wore down under the fatigue and pressure of playing on the road against a juggernaut of a franchise anyway. But this game was great in terms of what you expected. Two top teams, close game, went to overtime. And if you were worried about how good Indianapolis is, if this is their worst game, losing to Kansas City on the road in overtime, where they really dominated them for about 3.5 quarters, or at least 3 quarters, you'll take it as your floor game, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I'm not worried about this at all. It's a bummer that Jonathan Taylor didn't get going in this game, but it just shows the resilient of the Indianapolis Colts and the uh, awesome game planning, play calling of Andy Reid, and um, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't
Perseverance.
know. No, the execution of the
Okay.
game plan from Patrick Mahomes. So it's a great coach quarterback combination there.
I will say, in terms of how you said the game plan here, it wasn't it wasn't very fruitful early in the game, but they stuck with the running game to Kansas City, which I think contributed to the wearing down by the end. And Kareem Hunt by the end had a really good game, over 100 yards and a touchdown, but it didn't happen all at once. I think it was kind of like just badgering, and hoping they get a hole in the dam there. And by the end, they didn't break loose, but it's like you stick with the run until the game's out of reach where that's not an option. Keep doing it. You never know how many times that wearing the defensive line down, the other team will open up other plays for you that you can get later in the game.
Yeah, as a team, Kansas City rushed 41 times, so that's a ton of times. Kareem Hunt was 30 rushes on his own.
Wow.
That's a lot for them, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next game we have up here: Cleveland Browns at the Las Vegas Raiders. Shador Sanders won his first NFL start as the Browns crushed the Raiders 24-10 behind a ferocious defensive performance that sacked Geno Smith 10 times. Myles Garrett recorded 3 sacks and now leads the league with 18 through 11 games. Sanders became Cleveland's first QB to win his debut since 1999.
All right, not to jump around here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something. Do you have the New York Jets at Baltimore? We didn't do that one yet, did we?
Uh, that's next.
That's next. Okay, sorry. Okay, I just want to make
Oh,
sure we didn't skip.
Indianapolis, Kansas City. Oh, no, I did.
That's fine. We'll do Cleveland now. I just didn't want to get too far along. We'll do Cleveland now and go back to New York
No,
in a second.
I gotta find it.
Okay, well I'll tee up the Cleveland game here while you look for it.
Okay.
Like you mentioned, Shador Sanders got the victory as the starter here. It wasn't all good. He had a very mixed bag in terms of his overall play here, but the defense just kept them where they weren't high stress situations in terms of the game flow here. A couple big turnovers by or short fields for the offense let Judkins get some short touchdowns here. And then the defense for Cleveland just teed off on Las Vegas, and they slowly extended their lead here. And you mentioned there was a capping touchdown later in the game by Cleveland that really separated this one and put it out of reach with a short pass to a long pass, if anyone would look at it, a long touchdown pass from Shador Sanders to Dylan Sampson. What did you see on that particular play?
Yeah, that was a 66-yard screen pass to Dylan Sampson. So behind the line of scrimmage, and Sampson pretty much took care of it all, but it gave a nice stat line there. And Sanders didn't have he did have a 52-yard gain with connecting with Isaiah Bond.
Yeah.
That was the other player that was there. You don't hear his name, but something's happening here. So Shador Sanders' energy, I think, is a little bit contagious.
I think the headline here is the was it 10 sacks, 9 sacks, whatever many sacks. Cleveland just was in the backfield over and over and over again. And Geno Smith is doing what he's been doing. He's having a tough go this year with the combination of interceptions and or sacks allowed. All right. What's our next game here?
All right, I got it. I found it. New York Jets at the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry powered the Ravens past the Jets 23-10 with 2 third-quarter touchdowns, lifting Baltimore to its 5th straight win and above 500 for the first time this season. Tyrod Taylor started for the bench Justin Fields, but didn't have enough juice to prevent or to come to prevail over the costly goal line fumble that sealed New York's fate.
Yeah, this game was low scoring and close for a lot of the game here. But the Jets don't put a lot of pressure on the opposing team's offense. So Baltimore just did what they had to do to kind of keep moving the ball along here, just playing the field position game, leaning on Derrick Henry in the short to go touchdowns. Both of his runs were inside the 10-yard line and straight up the gut, right through the middle there. So the offense in terms of Baltimore didn't have to do too much because there wasn't much pressure put on them. So we had a dud from Lamar Sanders in a victory. But even then, it was a 3 or 7 point game into the middle of the fourth quarter. And you mentioned that fumble. It was a Brees Hall who wasn't doing too much today. He was doing solid in the limited, way they were moving the ball. But he had a stretch there in the late third, early fourth quarter where he was getting screen passes and breaking them for 24 yards at a time. And that fumble he was going into the end zone. He had a long scamper, and as he turned his back to try and do that power press kind of run to finish off there, someone came around the other side and punched it out at around the 1.5 yard line. I thought he was going to score. I needed him to score as we're looking at the fantasy points now, but so that was a big turnover in terms of the Jets ending their chance to keep it close. I think if they would have scored there, they would have got it from a 10-point game to a 3-point game, but then not scoring there, and then Baltimore coming back and scoring the other way pretty much put it out of reach later in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, for sure. And that was Humphreys. That was a 40-yard catch and run.
Yeah, okay, it was a long run. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then Humphrey forced that fumble on the goal line. Yeah, that was a tough one. All right, next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at Arizona Cardinals. The Jaguars escaped with a 27-24 overtime win, despite Trevor Lawrence's nightmare performance of 3 interceptions and a fumble returned for a touchdown. Cam Little drilled a game-winning 52-yarder in overtime after Arizona's Chad Ryland missed a crucial 33-yard attempt in regulation. Jacksonville kept their playoff hopes alive.
This game was about who can make the mistakes and then who can recover from those mistakes. As Jacksonville, I think, made more mistakes, but they also had more plays that recovered from those mistakes. It was kind of a weird, ugly game. We always say about how Brissett's been doing the Jameis Winston, giving away an interception or a fumble for a touchdown to start the game and then having to come back with it. Well, that was Trevor Lawrence this time, giving away that fumble recovery for a touchdown to start off the game or pretty early. And he tried to throw to come back, and he threw interceptions quite a bit, but then would have another chance as Arizona didn't do too much here. I do want to give props here. We're going into this week. We weren't sure about how Etienne and Bashal Tutin were both questionable during the week. We're both off the injury report coming into the game, but it was all Etienne today in terms of, I think it was at least 2-1 in terms of carries, and it seemed like he was on the field even more than that, and definitely was way more effective in those carries. And Michael Wilson on the other side of the ball here had that great game last week with 185 yards, had another game with 10 catches. Wasn't enough today, but has been a solid number one receiver. At least he is the number one target next to Trey McBride. But again, I felt like Arizona, if they would have played how they had been playing this game, they would have won. Jacksonville almost tried to lose this game. In another game where the stupid coach doesn't just kick the field goal to take the 6-point lead with about a minute and a half to go, instead goes for it, giving Arizona a short field so they can have the tying kick at the buzzer of fourth quarter, and they had to go into overtime here. I don't know why these coaches do it. The other team's not good. Just get up by 6 and pin them back inside the 15-yard line. Why give them the ball with only 15 to 20 yards to go to tie it? Just take the bigger lead when you have it, man. You got the kicker who has the longest leg in the entire league. Kick the 40-yard kick and just take a 6-point lead. If Brissett can do a drive with a minute and 30 seconds left and score a touchdown, hats off, man. Don't give him a chance for the easy tie. Make him have to work for the tough win.
Yeah, for sure. But you know who helped him win that game? Brent Strange made Trevor Lawrence look pretty good here. Parker Washington, both 5 receptions. Brenton Strange had 93 yards, and Parker Washington had 71 yards on the touchdown. So it was a good offensive showing despite all the setbacks. The only other thing I want to mention here is Bam Knight had the rushing touchdown, but he had no rushing yards. Arizona rushing game was non-existent.
Yep.
He was 10 for 12 on the ground. Michael Carter was 5 for 28, but that's it. It was rough to watch in a close game. So Arizona's defense, they're not horrible, but they had the chance to put this game away with Trevor Lawrence's mistakes.
Yep. Very good.
All right, next up we have the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. Kirk Cousins snapped Atlanta's 5-game losing streak with a 24-10 victory, winning in the Superdome for the first time since 2021. The Saints imploded in the red zone, getting stuffed on 4th and 1 from the 1-yard line and kicking the field goal. Cousins started after Michael Penix's junior season-ending knee injury.
I didn't watch too much of this game. The only thing I saw was a defensive end literally jumping over the head of Kirk Cousins as he cowered in fear, but didn't get touched or knocked over and was able to run out of the pocket after that and throw it away. So what do you have on this game? I know this is a game that you're probably watching more than I am, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Cousins looked okay. He didn't look bad. Tyler Shuck looked bad, but Tyler Shuck put up enough. He 30 for 43, so he had enough to have some yards, but no touchdowns, one interception. I think what happened in this game was that New Orleans is just really bad, and Atlanta was able to win this game against a good defense. Kirk Cousins without Drake London, it's going to be tough to win. Bijan Robinson had a tough game. He needed a touchdown to make it fantasy relevance. Darnell Mooney did have a good game though.
Yeah.
So that's always a positive sign there. Other than that, I didn't see Kamara get hurt, so I don't know the extent of what that looked like.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. We saw that he did leave the game early and did not return, but I don't know the severity of it at this point.
Yeah.
All right, what's our next game?
And next up, this is our last game. Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. The Eagles collapsed spectacularly, blowing a 21-point lead and losing 24-21 to the Cowboys. Philadelphia jumped out to a 21-0 lead with a dominant first half play, but completely unraveled. The Eagles committed season-high 14 penalties for 96 yards in a stunning meltdown.
Yeah, this one, we had, like you said, Philadelphia got to a hot start, but it wasn't as hot as it seemed. It was 21-zip, like you said. The first drive for Philadelphia was very impressive, going right down the field, mostly to A.J. Brown, which I appreciated personally. But nonetheless, after that, they were getting some good field position based on turnovers here. We had a muffed punt a muffed punt by Dallas that put him, first and goal at the 9-yard line, where then, pardon me, where Jalen Hurts ran one in. And then another time that the Dallas Cowboys were going down ready to score, they threw an interception from the 1-yard line, getting ready to go in. So in terms of yards, it was more Dallas than Philadelphia, except for that first drive. They really weren't that dominating. They just capped off some short fields to get some touchdowns to get to that 21 points. And then, like always, Philadelphia plays only one half, and a lot of times that's enough to win, but not today. So much credit for Dallas for sticking with it, because they were really frustrated. They were hanging their heads when they were down with that big score, because they know they were making mistakes, that they weren't really being outplayed. And then, like I said, kudos to the leaders on the team, like a Dak Prescott or the defense or the coaching staff, but they really just said, just stick with it, guys, and they slowly came back. They tried to lose another team that could have taken the lead with a 3-point field goal with about 4 minutes to go. I think they were inside the 5-yard line, didn't go for the kick to get their first lead of the game. They were down the whole game. It was 21-21. They were in field goal range, didn't take it, got stopped, gave the ball back to Philadelphia, who only needed a field goal now to win. And we've seen them before take 10-minute drives to kill the time and get the win. With about 4 minutes left, I thought for sure Philadelphia was going to take the whole time down and then score. But they had a huge sack, did Dallas on a 3rd and 2 to make it a 4th and 15 or so. So Dallas got the ball back and was able to kick the game-winning kick in the late seconds of this game. Kudos to Dallas. Disappointed in Philadelphia for not, putting the foot on the gas there, as they had such a big lead to start with. All they had to do was impose their will, but they're just like, nope, we'll just hang out here. We're cool. And they really took for granted the fight from the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, agree 100% there. The two big takeaways that I got from the Eagles, it was Saquon Barkley putting the ball on the ground, only 10 carries for 22 yards for Saquon. So that was a really rough game for Eagles rushing, which they could have used in the second half to shut down this Dallas comeback. And then on the other side, a couple drops that were uncharacteristic in his career, but this season he's had a few drops. So hopefully George Pickens is able to continue to make up what CD has been lacking.
You've teed up the question I want to ask you, but before I get to that, my first question, do you think Dallas has fixed their defense a little bit? They've been they were kind of thrown for a loop the way that whole Micah Parsons deal went down as they traded him the last second right before the start of the season. And he was a big part of their defense, but they've been slowly through the year, been adding some pieces through later in the season trades. And they've addressed the middle of their defensive line. And the last couple of games, they've actually been stuffing the opponent's running game quite a bit, more than they were early in the year. I mean, Rico Dowdle went for 200 yards, and now they're stopping Saquon Barkley to 22. Do you think Dallas's defense has fixed some problems here, especially on their defensive line?
Yeah, I think so. They've got 2 quarters, 2 shutout quarters now. Let's see if they can get it to 3 when they play the Chiefs on Thursday. I think that is quite possible. And if they can get 3, maybe they can get 4. If they can start shutting these teams down a couple quarters out of a game, they have a chance to win because their offense is definitely good.
And they've improved now to 5-1. They beat Philadelphia. They tied Green Bay. So they're playing up to some of these, bigger competition teams. But here's the question I want to ask you. You mentioned with CeeDee Lamb making what you called uncharacteristic drops. Is George Pickens the 1A for the Dallas Cowboys?
No, he's still the 1B. But CD is always going to be the 1A. And the reason George Pickens' numbers look so good is because CD's the 1A. I think it's one of
Okay.
those situations. If you take CD out of it, uh,
I got a counterpoint, man. He had those huge games when CD missed those 3 weeks.
he did. But I attribute that to Javonte Williams and Dak Prescott being as good as they are.
Oh, wow. You
I'm
just
not
really
taking
don't.
anything away from George Pickens.
Sounds like you are to me. It sounds
yeah.
like you are.
I am slowly. But it is what it is.
That's
He's
fine.
doing a great.
I asked
He's
your
doing a
opinion.
great
You
job.
gave it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. All right. So we did have a Sunday night game that was very awful to watch, really. I don't know if you have any notes there, but just watching it here, we had the LA Rams destroy the Tampa Bay Bucks here. They got up early. Tampa Bay was going for it on 4th down inside their own side of the field in the middle of the second quarter, giving up an all or nothing type of game. And Baker Mayfield got knocked out of the game at the end of the first half here. It was in an arm sling on his left arm. I don't know if it's elbow or shoulder. Not good. Teddy Bridgewater came in and looked old and slow and looked really not very helpful here. So we're not sure what's going to happen next week. Like you said, they're playing, I think they're playing Arizona next week. So that might be interesting there. Teddy Bridgewater might be a starting quarterback for the Bucks in week 13.
Yeah. So the stat lines are fairly similar, with the one big exception, touchdowns and interceptions. Teddy didn't have any of those, and Baker had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Um, it, they're in trouble. Tampa Bay's in trouble. Their offense is just not where it needs to be. I think Baker might have taken on too much responsibility and not shared the responsibility amongst the other captains on this team, even though some of them are hurt. The running game, I think they really need to go back to focus on that, which will help Baker come back. If Baker doesn't come back, though, we'll talk about it in the early waiver thoughts here, but there might be a defense to pick up.
Good segue, because now it is time to get into those early waiver wire thoughts. I'm going to run off some quarterbacks that catch my attention. Similar to last week, guys, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, not a lot of injuries. That's good news, which means these waiver wire early thoughts here are going to be really stinky and very slim pickings, but we're going to put out what's out there right now. I got Tyrod Taylor up against Atlanta Falcons next week. Not sure if he's going to keep the starting job, but if he is, there's not many starting quarterbacks out there available to pick up. So Tyrod Taylor's on my list here. Shadur Sanders, another player who may or may not start next week up against San Francisco. Cam Ward has his best game of the year, having, in terms of fantasy, about 23.5 points, playing against Jacksonville. Jacksonville does have a decent defense, but they're not consistent, so you don't know how that one's going to go. And Jameis Winston, I expect Dart to be back next week, but Jameis Winston can show he can get some random numbers in some weird ways. That's the quarterbacks I have. If you're desperate for some pickups next week, there's not a lot of good options.
No, there's not. And those are all quarterbacks playing good defenses, or going against defenses that allow good quarterback play. Marcus Mariota is probably available. He's going up against Denver's defense. if you're in a 14-team league and you've got no options, Marcus is a decent option. He's not a bad option, just going up against a really tough defense.
And then you mentioned before, if a Baker Mayfield misses any time, I'm not gonna lie. Bridgewater looked atrocious, but maybe with a week of practice under his belt, there's always a chance for a decent play. They're playing Arizona, who's that middle of the road thing, an offense that can score to make you have to keep up, and also not a defense that can shut you down. Hopefully, we saw that today. They were getting turnovers, but they couldn't really shut down Jacksonville. They just would stop drives with those turnovers, but they couldn't really stop the ball from moving. So maybe Bridgewater can get some sneaky plays here with Tampa Bay, but I wouldn't count on it. Running backs that catch my attention here, Devin Neal for the New Orleans Saints up against Miami, whose defense has been improving. So I don't like the matchup as much as you would have liked it 4 or 5 weeks ago. But if Alvin Kamara misses any time, he's the only back there, guys. Kendra Miller's out for the year. They got cut Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know who else they even have there anymore. They got nobody. Devin Singletary is splitting time with Tyrone Tracy for the Giants. They're playing New England this coming week. Again, he's not a superstar here, but he is splitting back. He's one of the guys that are at least getting 50-50 workload, give or take maybe 45%. Jaleel McLaughlin, we don't know. He got the touchdown in the last game for the Denver Broncos. Not sure how they're going to work that out against Washington. And then, as you mentioned, it was kind of a fluke play, but I got Dylan Sampson off a big week here against San Francisco next week. Do you have any other running backs that you want to mention here?
No, just one. Maybe keep an eye on Isaiah Davis. They're going up against Atlanta next week. I don't know what the coaching staff feels about Brees Hall, fumbling that ball, or what Brees mentally feels about fumbling that ball. But Isaiah Davis has shown that he can put up some fantasy numbers.
All right, we've got some receivers out there. We mentioned a little bit before. Brenton Strange was actually a steadying force. I wouldn't say he was like super prolific, but like you said, 93 yards on only 5 catches. He's one of those tight ends that can catch the ball downfield a little bit and break away a little bit after the catch. Against Tennessee, who's a decent matchup. These type of players you can't trust because you can't trust Trevor Lawrence. You can't trust Tennessee. Sometimes they're good on defense, sometimes they're not. So the game script is not in stone here, but Brenton Strange looked like a quality player coming off of the IR activation this week. And with T. Higgins, in my opinion, expected to be missing this particular week, we have Jamar Chase should be back off that suspension. We have Andre Iosivas, and also Mitch Tinsley had a little bit of a connection with Joe Flacco. Not sure or not if Flacco will be playing or Joe Burrow at this point. Nonetheless, if they're missing players, Mitch Tinsley had some big plays today. That's all I have for some receivers. The tight end for Jacksonville and whoever might be filling in for T. Higgins if he misses on Thursday.
Yeah, if you really want to get deep with it, Keenan Allen might be available. They're going up against Las Vegas, who likes to give up some big plays.
Yeah, don't forget to check all these people are getting desperate picking up players. They've got to drop some people who might be a little sneakier than you realize that might be out there in your league. So definitely comb the waiver wire there for some players that might have been dropped in the last 10 days who are worthy of picking up. All right, now for some kickers here, in that same vein, due to being on bye this past week, we have some quality kickers who have been dropped in multiple leagues. Cam Digger for the LA Chargers is playing against the Las Vegas Raiders, and Will Lutz up against the Commanders. Both these guys are the same, both quality kickers, both on winning teams, and playing against teams that shouldn't run away from you, meaning that these teams will kick these field goals when it's 4th and 3 and not be going for it all the time. And they've got more solid coaches who aren't going to give away free points, I think. And Matt Gay is now kicking for San Francisco. Eddie Pinheiro, who's not a good kicker, was getting a lot of points for San Francisco, even with missing extra points. So Matt Gay might fall into a role here where he might be able to be a decent kicker for you guys. They're playing against Cleveland next week. Any kickers catch your attention?
No, just one to maybe stay away from. Zane Gonzalez, if he's out there. They're going up against the Jets, but they're playing at the Jets, so nobody really wants to play at that stadium and get hurt.
Good point. At this time of the year, we're looking for weather games, indoor games, whatever. So it's not just about matchups; it's about matchups in a climate and or a controlled climate, if you can handle it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Some defenses to look at here. Surprisingly enough, the Miami Dolphins defense, I don't know if they're fixed, but their last 2.5 games, they've been pretty good actually since the trade deadline, getting rid of some of their best players. Maybe, like I said, Jalen Phillips was ready to go so much, maybe he was not focused. Not blame him. I'd be ready to go too if you can go to a Super Bowl contender. But Miami's been improving here, going against New Orleans Saints, who are potentially going to be without Alvin Kamara and a rookie quarterback who at best is streaky. That might be a sneaky play this week if you're in need of a streamer, the Miami defense. Also, the New York Jets against Atlanta. We've seen Cousins. He's turnover prone. He's one of those guys that when he starts throwing interceptions, it might be a snowball effect where more than one might be coming. Similar with Tennessee versus Jacksonville. We saw it today with Trevor Lawrence had 3 interceptions and a fumble lost. So you're just kind of looking for guys who have inconsistent quarterback play that maybe you can take advantage of if the snowball gets rolling downhill, like I said before. So Miami versus New Orleans, the Jets versus Atlanta, and Tennessee versus Jacksonville. Any other streaming defenses catch your attention?
Yeah, keep an eye on the health of Baker Mayfield.
Oh, yeah.
Tampa Bay is going up against Arizona. If Teddy Bridgewater has to start against Arizona's defense, that might be a sneaky good play.
Very good call. All right, you're on top of it, Bernie. Way to go. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League podcast. If you want to find our audio feeds, we're out there on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Just search Wingman the League, and we'll come to the top of your search. And when you find us, leave a 5-star review, leave a comment, and follow us as we go along here. But if you want to see our show, our bar room, our decorations, our video screens in the background, and our helmet wall back there as well, go ahead to our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube or youtube.com/@wingmanfantasyfootball. When you head over there, guys, do me the favor, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment, and we'll get it read in our next mailbag segment. With that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty,
and make sure that you've got elastic waistband pants. Thanksgiving's coming up.
Ooh, casserole time. All right, see you guys next time.